Now, Abram and Sarai are getting very anxious about God fulfilling his promise, which we can all relate to. God's timing is so much longer than ours. So Sarai suggests that she give Abram her servant, her female servant, to be his wife, and that he have children through her, through Hagar. And so he listens to her. They do this. He takes her as his wife, and she gets pregnant. And then she ends up mistreating Sarai because of it, because she sees that she has something that Sarai couldn't produce for Abram. And so then that causes some issues, and Sarai treats Hagar harshly. Sarai ends up leaving. God actually meets her and tells her that she's going to have a great nation through Ishmael, who she'll eventually have. That he'll be a wild donkey of a man. And so what I love is that the Bible comments on itself. So we find out in the book of Galatians that Hagar is a picture of Judaism, of the law. And Sarai, who eventually has the son Isaac, who is the son of promise, is a picture of the church. So just like you have these two ladies, and you have the natural way of doing things, and then you've got the by faith way, because it wasn't likely that Sarai would have children in her old age, but she ended up having them, or having one and having Isaac. And so just as these two women, one was natural and a slave, and the other was supernatural and free, so it is with these two religions, with Christianity versus Judaism, or you could even say every other religion out there that teaches that you've got to work your way to salvation. It is slavery, and it's not the religion of promise like Christianity is. And so we see this throughout the Bible, and especially in the Old Testament, and so many people have issues with it, that God teaches us pictures. He shows us things and teaches us parables through a bunch of painful things that happen that we quickly could judge and say, well, I do not accept the Old Testament because there's slavery and sexism and homophobia and all these things. There's so much killing of people and women and children. And so what we've got to understand, I know this is harsh, but what we've got to understand is that God can do what he wants to do. We're all born in sin. We're all born spiritually dead, and he's been gracious enough to give us a chance for life. And so what he's done is he's used these bad situations to teach us things like slavery, like multiple wives, which I believe in the Old Testament teaches us that God had multiple wives in the Old Testament because he had Jews and Gentiles, and he brought them and made them one in the New Testament through Jesus Christ. And that's why there is the command to only have one wife in the New Testament. So let's look at this picture. What we have here is your two options. You can either be the child of promise through Christianity, who's a real child of God, who didn't get rejected, or you can be the child of slavery, which was not of promise, which was the natural way, and that is every other religion out there that teaches that you've got to do something to be accepted, right? Because eventually the one who inherited Abram's wealth was Isaac, was the child of promise. And so that's got to be you. If you want to inherit, what God is doing, and God is creating a new heaven and a new earth, you cannot do it by the law. You cannot do it by earning your way, by doing things naturally. You've got to do them supernaturally by being children of promise. And I know it's hard to do that, but we've got to strive to do that. And the whole point in Galatians is not all of Abram's descendants were heirs and were accepted, because Ishmael was not. Only the ones of promise. And God used this because it was very hard on Jews and Israelites to turn to Christianity, right? Because God gave us the law to prepare us for a Savior, and they had an issue with accepting that Savior. They're still waiting for a Messiah, even though he's already come, and yes, he's coming again. And so God sent this picture so that they would know that just because they're a descendant of Abraham, and if you're an Israelite, if you're a Jewish person, just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you're accepted. Just like Ishmael, he was a descendant of Abram, but he wasn't accepted because he wasn't a child of promise. And so if you want to be a child of promise, you've got to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and realize that you are accepted because of what he did. Not because of what you've done, but because of what he's done.